Mark.
Joe, how are you?
I am very well. It's earlier in the day than we normally do this.
It's a Sunday morning.
I am caffeinated.
I'm barely caffeinated.
But you look great. That's the important thing.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you sound good.
This is the medium for looking great, that's for sure.
So you told me before we started this that you don't have a question prepared.
I do not.
Which is fine because I do have a question prepared for you for a change.
There you go.
We're changing everything around today.
The shoes on the other foot. All right.
Okay. What is your favorite piece of animation ever?
Oh my God.
Well, you always ask me hard questions.
Yeah, that's a really hard question. I think the cat came back.
Ooh, classic Canadian NFB.
Yeah, an NFB. Yeah, the cat came back.
And why is that your favorite?
Because I have cats, and basically I'm a child at heart, and so I appreciate the goofiness of the song as much as anything else, and the animation's fabulous on that.
Well, I love that you said that because our guest today, Tess Martin, who's joining us from Rotterdam, of all places, had a cat wandering around her microphone earlier.
Really?
Yeah. So I know there's a cat over there in Rotterdam with her. Tess, welcome to our podcast, Recreative.
Thank you. Yes,
Welcome.
there is a cat. She's now looking out the window.
Okay.
She's moved on from my lap, but she might make an appearance later.
You might hear mine yowling because I always close the door before we start the podcast. And this morning, and it's still breakfast time for them. So yeah.
So Tess, I'm going to introduce you to our listeners. Let me know if I get anything wrong. If I do, then you've got it wrong because I'm actually reading from your website. So,
Okay. Cool.
so Tess Martin is a film and visual artist based in Rotterdam, the Netherlands, and brings her perspective as someone who raised between cultures, themes of belonging, identity, and connection. And basically, you're a short film maker, and I've seen 3 of your films now, and they are technically excellent and engrossing. And I actually like one of them maybe even more than the art that you have chosen to talk about today. And we'll get into that. But
That's an honor.
Is there anything that you would add that you would like to say about yourself and your work that we should know about?
No, that was a wonderful introduction.
Well, you wrote it. So.
Well written. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I do film and like art installations that have films in them. I've been in Rotterdam about 11 years. I grew up moving around. That's what that sentence means, raised between cultures. Yeah, so the film that is the one I most recently finished is kind of taking a look at our experience of time through one specific house. And then the work I've done previous to that in different ways also has dealt with kind of our experience of time or trying to relate to a different time period. So that seems to be a theme right now in my work.
And is that a relatively new theme, or is this something that has fascinated you for a long time? Or
I think it's probably new in such an explicit, like conscious manner with these 3 films, which is now already like 3 or 4 years, because I started to get into a lot of family history and like historical research. So that kind of side quest kind of started me thinking about all these topics, and then these various projects kind of came out of that interest, I think.
Right. So Mark had said that his favorite off the cuff.
That was given the 30 seconds I had to think about it.
And you're probably thinking about it more. But The Cat Came Back is it's a particular type of animation.
It's
It's engaging. It's funny. It's I think a very Canadian, very North American, and the kind of animation that you do and that you're going to talk about later springs from a different place, doesn't it? Like it's just as engrossing, but it's not necessarily as commercial. What would you say the difference is?
I mean, commerciality, is that the noun? When it comes to animated shorts is pretty limited anyway.
Right.
But for sure, the style of Cordell Barker is much more applicable to like Saturday morning cartoons, like animation for kids that is commercial, or that can be commercial. So that's true. My work is not that.
But it's thoughtful and it's literate.
Yeah, I mean, it's it's the age-old thing that people think animation is for kids. So that's always been the thing that animators in general, I think, struggle with, because animation is just a technique. It doesn't mean anything. It just means how it's made. So it's just like saying moving image, like it doesn't define the content. It's not a genre, it's a technique.
Yeah.
So when people when people say stuff like that, it just shows that what they're defining animation as is very specific, and it's not what I define it as.
Yeah.
So
my brain has been screaming Howl's Moving Castle for the last 2 minutes. Yeah, because I like.
Is that what you wish you had said?
I wish I said that now. Yeah, but you know what? I'll stand by it. But because it's because this morning I was in Saturday morning cartoon mode, and that's the one that kind of popped into my head. But
no, totally, and it's totally valid. It's just one of the options.
Yeah,
it doesn't mean that all animation is aimed at kids or aimed at like commercial things, just like I guess film and cinema, right? There's a variety of filmmakers, and some are commercial filmmakers, who work in Hollywood, and like it's like superhero movies. And then there's everything else. So it's as broad. In fact, animation is, we say animation is as old as cinema because that's true. But actually, I've come to think of it as much older than cinema, in fact, because, again, it depends how you define animation. But if you define animation as sequential imagery that is, flickering past your eye at a fast pace, actually that predates the invention of the film camera because of all these Victorian era toys, the pre-camera toys like the zoetrope or the phenakistoscope or the thaumatrope, which is the one that's just a round thing like on string and you twirl it. And in fact, I was reminded of this documentary that came out like 12 years ago or something, this Werner Herzog documentary called Cave of Forgotten Dreams about the Lascaux caves in France, where there's these like 40,000-year-old cave paintings. And in the documentary, there's like a sequential image of like a horse running, and he posits with a torch, like a fire torch. He posits that someone running the torch in front of these sequential images really fast kind of makes it look like it's one horse that is running. So if that's true, then animation is definitely older than film.
Oh, that's incredible.
That's really cool. That's a cool thought. I was thinking about, I was in Thailand once and I saw, now it was theater because it was, an audience and people doing it, but it was a little bit like animation because it was basically just silhouettes. It was puppets and silhouettes, and you couldn't actually see the puppets because it was behind the screen, and all of they were just images on the back of a sheet, basically. Mm-hmm. And it was, that was very much like animation.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the line between puppetry and animation is also very blurred. This is a distinction people have a lot of opinions about within the various fields. But it's all part of the same kind of time-based medium thing. Like it depends how broad you want to go, right? Like after a certain point, it's just like art. it's just all human expression of some kind.
Now, it's interesting, Mark, that you mentioned Howl's Moving Castle by Hayao Miyazaki, who actually has said of the animator that you want to talk about, Tess, in Hayao Miyazaki's opinion, they're one of the greatest living animators. So can you tell us who that is and what the piece of work is that you were interested in talking about?
Yes. So I would love to talk about Yuri Norstein's Tale of Tales from 1979. Yuri Norstein is a Russian filmmaker. He's more well known for a 10-minute short film called The Hedgehog and the Fog, which is also very beautiful and has some amazing, inspiring shots in it. And it kind of also goes down in history as like kind of a revolutionary piece of art. But Tale of Tales to me is much more interesting and complex. I mean, just like the distinction we were just talking about, Hedgehog in the Fog is based on like a children's short story about a little hedgehog that is going to go visit his friend the bear, and then he gets lost in the woods. So it's like based on kind of like a fairy tale. So it's very much in that vein. Like it's, you know, it's not aimed only at children. I mean, there's plenty of adults that also love it, but it's definitely child friendly. It's one of Norstein's child friendly films, which are kind of his earlier work, which is in a way why Tale of Tales is so, I think why it made such a big impact when it came out, because it was just not that. It was clearly not for kids, basically. Like there's not a lot of other ways to say it. I mean, it's not for kids. It's not like it's super gory or anything like that, but it's definitely not a classical narrative that
it doesn't hold your hand.
It doesn't hold your hand. No. Yeah. And this film, when it came out in 1979, it won like loads of awards, and I can't remember what the award was, but it was adjudicated best animated short film of all time. I mean, in 1979. Mm-hmm. So it had a big impact at the time. And yeah, indeed, Miyazaki is a fan. And so much so that they afterwards collaborated on something. So I forget what it was, but Miyazaki invited Norstein to come to Tokyo and work on something. I think it was called Windy Days. It was like a part of a compilation of short snippets from various directors. And I think Norstein has spent a lot of time in Japan since. So, yeah.
Can you give a little synopsis of Tale of Tales?
Yeah, so it's hard to give a synopsis. It has as kind of its central character this little gray wolf that anyone Russian, I'm told, will recognize as the character in this lullaby that is also sung in the film. Right. Throughout the film, there's this lullaby that I think also starts off the film when there's like a mother singing this lullaby to this baby. And in the lullaby, there's a story of this little gray wolf will come, you know, like if you don't go to sleep kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that there's
very Russian danger. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's also, I mean, a lot of children's songs are kind of dark, you know.
But it's an adorable looking wolf. In the film.
Yes. Yeah. So there's this kind of cute little wolf, which is interesting because it's in the same vein as Hedgehog in the Fog with these animal characters. So I think that's also interesting. Like I imagine people might have been kind of lulled into a false sense of security when starting to watch this film because they're like, oh, it's another cute little animal story.
Right. And then it subverts that.
Yeah, exactly. And this character is, you know, this wolf character recurs throughout, but he's not in the whole movie. There's other things happening. There's other like scenes and kind of storylines, but he's kind of the central motif, so to speak. And he ends up interacting in some of these other scenes throughout the film. And he ends the film also. So that's kind of the thread that connects throughout the film. But actually I would say it's a film made of like weaving motifs. And there's the wolf, and then there's another kind of world where it's this very stark, contrasty black and white world with a poet that has writer's block and is like trying to write something, and his cat like making fun of him, and this fisherman family. And it kind of has this idyllic aura. There's an ox that is skipping rope with a little girl.
Yeah. He looked like a Maurice Sendak character, that ox.
Yeah. And it's so, it's got this kind of Alice in Wonderland kind of absurd, surreal quality, which I think is really like fun. Like, I think that's one of the reasons why this film is so good at what it does, because it really has these ways of reeling people in, and it's completely unapologetic. Like, it's completely not explained why there's this like dancing ox playing skipping rope with this little girl that's kind of bullying him. But it's like, it's totally just like accepted. It's just like, yep, here's an ox playing skipping rope with a little girl, and you know, and it's not like addressed. None of it is addressed. None of it needs to be addressed.
Now, do you think that's because the filmmaker is expecting the audience to be literate and not have to have that stuff explained?
I think there is a lot of stuff that I think is very culturally specific. So like, if you're Russian, especially of his age or older, then, and I think he's like in his late 70s now, Norstein. I think he was born right in 1944 or 1945, like right at the end of World War II.
Right.
So I think if you are Russian and older, especially, there's a lot of things you will recognize that I only learned about after reading about the film. Like, for example, there's a shot of like a glass of liquid and like a little bit of food. Like in the sequence, there's this sequence to do with soldiers, right, where this is another kind of recurring motif. There's this tango dance in a square with all these couples dancing. And then at a certain point, the music stops and poof, 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 all the men disappear. And the women are left standing immobile with no dance partner. And then the men, you can see the men go off to war. And all the compositions are very like inventive. So like, there's no rules of, you know, perspective or composition being followed. Like the men are kind of floating off in the sky. And then in that sequence, then there's this shot of this little liquid and food underneath some dripping leaves, dripping with water. So if you're Russian, you will recognize this as a glass of vodka and some bread, which is an offering to people who've died that is traditionally done. Right. Like stuff like this, that like, and there's these different shots of, that's kind of repeated throughout the film. There's a shot of all these little tables that have been taken out of homes and set up on the street outside. And then a long tablecloth on all these little tables as kind of like, it looks like it's set up for some kind of community event. And apparently that's something that used to happen all the time in the 40s in Moscow when they would have some big event like a dinner or something. Everybody would bring their bedside tables out and like line them up to make one big table because, you know, no one had a big enough piece of furniture. Stuff like that I think, yeah, if you were from that time in that place, you would recognize it. So like, I think that's also why it's so successful, because everything is so specific that you can really tell that these are memories of his, that he remembers like people doing this, and he remembers like the wooden house being a certain way with like this wooden kind of coal burning stove. Everything is very specific, and it feels very like real. Yeah. Like whatever it is, I don't necessarily understand what it is, but it feels very true for some reason to whoever made this film, you know? And I think that's like the basic reason why it's so successful, I think, as a film.
Yeah, it strikes me that it comes from a kind of art making where, like in the past, take a James Joyce novel, for example, you know, these were people who were creating very complex art that weren't necessarily understandable upon first reading. You had to be kind of immersed in that type of literature or that type of art or world to understand it, or be willing to do the work to understand it. Whereas now what we see all around us, typically by virtue of perhaps Hollywood or whatever, there's a lot of hand-holding. You know, everything is explicit as opposed to implicit. And this comes from a very different kind of art. And I think that the art that you do is also of that school. And so I wonder if we've lost something in Western art or North American art.
I think there's still people out there that appreciate it. I'm one of those people. Like I agree with you. And that's also why I love Tale of Tales, is because it lets me kind of try to figure it out. So it gives me this gift of being able to interpret it the way I want, but it's not, I don't find it frustrating. Like I find that it gives me enough information and enough repeated shots and clues that I feel like, my mind is going all the time when I'm watching it. I'm like, oh yeah, this is like the thing. And then we saw the fish over here and now there's another fish here. And like, there's this sequence in the snow with this little boy eating an apple. And it has a very different bright look compared to the rest of the film, which is kind of earthy, muted tones. And this little boy is eating an apple and he looks up into the trees where there's these crows sitting, and the camera tracks up to the branches, and then he's also there on the branch eating, sharing his apple with the crows. So there's this unrealistic like doubling of this little boy, but immediately you're like, oh, well, that must be like his imagination. Like he's imagining himself up there with the crows. And I'm not like hung up on, is it a twin? Why is there suddenly a double little boy? It's more like instinctual. Yeah. But it still allows me that freedom to interpret it. It's not telling me what's going on with this doubling, but it's kind of giving me the atmosphere and the vibe and everything for me to reach the conclusion that maybe this is a dream scenario of the little boy, that he's up there in the tree with the crows. So I feel supported by the filmmaker. I don't feel like adrift at sea, like completely abandoned and like, great, now I'm expected to watch this 30-minute piece of nonsense. And like, it's completely unrealistic to expect any viewer to put it together themselves, or, I don't feel like that with Tale of Tales. But of course, that's a personal, subjective, taste level thing. Because I know people who watch Tale of Tales and do feel that way. Like for them, it's not enough. They need more clues and they need more handholding. Yeah. But for me, it's the perfect amount. It's the perfect balance. And if it was any more handholding, I would be disappointed. Yeah. I would feel like, what a lost opportunity. I was about to have this magical moment where I feel part of it. Like I feel like I'm kind of writing it as I'm watching it because I'm putting it together. So if you just tell me what's going on, it's a completely passive experience for me. And it's so boring.
Yeah, it destroys the mystery.
Yeah, exactly. So for me, it's the perfect balance. But of course, that's different for everybody. And it's also, I think, a generational thing. Like, I think it's also like what people are used to and, a cultural thing. So it's a hard thing to work with, like to make your own work with this in mind, because you never know exactly who's going to be watching your film and like where they come from and what type of background of film they have, in terms of what have they seen before. Right. So all I can do is make work that I would want to see, because, trying to do anything else is, I think, a losing battle.
That's such great advice for any artist, basically. Just create what you would like to see, create what you need to see that you're not seeing.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know how you can do anything else truthfully. So,
although it can be painful, I recently had the experience of a family member reading one of my books, and basically the way they phrased it up was, so I read your book, Joe. I got through it. Oh, good for you. You got through it. And then I read another book and it was even worse than yours. What? Because this particular book was science fiction, and science fiction is famous for having kind of a threshold of entry. If you're not informed in the genre, you might find it challenging. And I think that kind of applies to these films as well. So I wasn't too put out. I was more amused than anything. You were not able to get past the threshold of entry. Yeah. It's not your cup of tea, but other people will.
Yeah, this is a really interesting question, because it's also like, what do you owe the audience? Do you owe it to them to like give them a chance to get there? but then you also don't want to treat them like idiots either.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like I don't like being treated like as if, oh well, this person doesn't respect me at all, like they think I'm a total idiot, that I'm not going to be able to do this myself. So they're like telling me everything. But then again, yeah, if you're someone like your relative who's really kind of feeling left out because they don't have that information that they think they need, that's also not good. So yeah, it's a really tough situation.
But in his defense, like, this man is not an illiterate man. The very next thing he did was handed me the Man of La Mancha and said, I think you will enjoy this. So I couldn't console myself with the knowledge that, well, he's not a reader.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's when I start to think about asking for feedback from people at the right time and the right people from the right people.
Yeah. It's about the audience. Audience is a funny thing, right? Because you can't create art for every audience. Every audiences have their own likes and dislikes. And then there's also some people just don't have the ability to suspend their disbelief. It's just not baked in for some people, and that's fine. And there's art for those people, and it's okay to create art that's not for those people. I think that's okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think you're right.
But you do have to give your audience a chance.
Exactly.
Right.
So it's about figuring out who is your audience actually, and which people do you ask for feedback from that is in your audience. So okay, if this person doesn't get it, then maybe I do need to adjust something because this person is really, I thought this was my audience. So
yeah. So do you have like a Tale of Tales filter? Like you ask your beta watchers to see if they've heard of it or Miyazaki maybe or something like that. Yeah.
I don't. It's quite obscure even within like the animation and film community that I am a part of. I mean, there are definitely some diehard fans that know it very well. But like in my circle of artists and filmmakers that I interact with here in Rotterdam, yeah, I don't know if anybody has seen it.
Yeah.
It is quite niche. But they might love it once they watch it. It's just they haven't come across it yet,
So let's connect it to your work. So it did strike me as in the same vein, although your work is, I would say, just a hair more accessible. I'm thinking in particular of your film House, about the last house that you lived in and about the nature of time. It was a little bit more accessible because you had some narration from people who had lived in the house with you. Would you say there's much of an impact of Tale of Tales on your work? And if so, what would that be?
I mean, I hope there is. Tale of Tales was really the first film that I watched when I basically first discovered like experimental animation. I was at Art Academy and I was doing like a conceptual fine art course. And I ended up discovering experimental animation, and I went to the Art Academy library and looked everything up. So I basically learned through books and DVDs everything about like Norman McLaren and the NFB and Caroline Leaf and William Kentridge and Jan Svankmajer and Yuri Norstein. And I also really liked Jan Svankmajer's Dimensions of Dialogue, which is a 1982 film that is very symbolic, and it has like 3 different sections, and one of them is like different heads kind of made up of different things, like one head made up of school supplies and one head made up of like metal things. And then each head like eats the other head and like regurgitates a different head with no conventional narrative. It's very materials based, kind of weird fairy tale-esque symbolic films. And then Yuri Norstein, of course, I loved Hedgehog in the Fog. I was like, oh my God, how did he do the fog? Like, I got really caught up in like the technique and everything. And then I saw Tale of Tales and I was like, oh, okay.
That's great.
Because I think I had never seen a work like that. I had never seen a work like what we're just describing, a work that really leaves room for interpretation and is so rich and so engrossing that you are willing to put in the effort to interpret it yourself. And I didn't, I hadn't been particularly into animation before that, or film. I mean, other than, everybody being into film, like everybody. So this was really eye-opening to me, Tale of Tales.
When you were primed for it at that time.
I was primed. I think I watched it at the right time, and it really influenced, like, I think the student film that I made as my graduation film, which was like kind of a weird meditative, like stream of consciousness style film. I think that idea of feeling like you have the freedom to do something kind of stream of consciousness, I think that came from Tale of Tales, because without it, I don't know that I would have had the confidence to do that, to be like, yeah, you know what? It's just going to be this series of shots and I know how they're connected, but it's not actually that important. That was my graduation film. So I think it did influence my work at the right time. So I'm sure it still comes through in the recent work also. But I'd have to think about it a little bit with How Now House, because How Now House is, like you said, it's a bit more grounded in something really specific. It's about these grand ideas, about time and time overlapping in one place, and how it's so intriguing for us to think about other people who've lived in your house before you. But it's also impossible for us to really know what it was like for them. But this attempt to visualize the different times overlapping, that's what that film was. So it's addressing these grand themes, but it's actually through quite a concrete, accessible keyhole, so to speak.
I love that.
Yeah, which is one real house, the real people who lived there, real scientists talking about time and how time works. So there's a lot of footholds for people to get to these grander ideas.
Yeah, you're not holding their hand so much as you're giving them something to hang on to understand it. And did I recognize the voice of Carl Sagan in there?
No, you're thinking of the other film.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah, 1976 Search for Life has archival audio of documentaries from the 1976 NASA mission to Mars. And Carl Sagan is in some of those.
Yes, that's right. I'm sorry. I watched them back to back, and I'm conflating the elements. Sorry about that. Yeah.
No, I mean, Carl Sagan has a great voice, and as soon as you're researching, 1970s NASA documentaries, he comes up a lot. Yeah. So it's kind of hard to avoid him. But no, How Now House has. All the dialogue is spoken by actors or non-professional actors, but they're all based on either real interviews with real people or real writings. And the voice of the scientist in the film, which is read by an actress, is the real work of Carlo Rovelli, this theoretical physicist who is still working today. I mean, he's in his prime, and has published a couple very accessible, popular books about time. And he gave me his blessing to use the words in the film, for which I'm very grateful.
I want to compliment you too on, I'm a career sound guy. That's what I used to do for a living. I really liked your use of sound in your films. I mean, it was all technically expert and evocative. So the sound.
Well, that's great. Yeah, I mean, How Now House, I worked with the composer Ruben van Asselt, who also did the sound design, which was a big challenge because there was all these different sound recordings of all these different voices that were not professionally recorded in a studio. And he also did the music and cleaned it all up and put it all together. And in 1976, it was Matija Pekic, who also did the color grading and some of the cinematography. He also did the sound mix, which was also a big challenge because it was this collage of different archival audio and also my own voiceover. So there was like a lot of different elements.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I'm definitely very thankful for being able to collaborate with experts on the audio side, because that is not my field of expertise.
And there was a lot of people involved in these films too. Like looking at the credits at the end, it's
yeah, especially How Now House, because there's so many voices. So yeah, we spent a long time finding people with like specific accents. And luckily, they only had to say a few sentences each. So,
now, was that a house in Rotterdam or is that somewhere else?
Yeah, no, it's in Rotterdam. It's in the northern neighborhood. And I lived there for 10 years. And like you find out in the film, it's a shared house with 4 bedrooms. So there's like a high turnover. And even back then, I discovered through the research, there was also a high turnover from when it was first built, because it was one house, but 2 apartments. And this was kind of a like affordable type of apartment built in the 1920s. So they were small. There wasn't a lot of space. So like you can kind of see, like, as soon as these couples start having kids, then they move out because it's just not big enough. But it meant there was also a high turnover, so there was like a lot of residents to choose from and research, which is not necessarily the case. Like where I live now is a small place from 1937, but I think it only ever had maybe 4 or 5 residents the whole time, just because, one person lived here for 35 years.
Yeah, exactly.
and then the next person lived here for 20 years. And then, you're basically up to today. So It was a rich story, this one house. It had a lot to mine. And then, of course, even in my own 10-year tenure, there was a lot of housemates as well. So there was a lot to process for sure.
Yeah, a lot can happen in 10 years.
Yes. Yeah. And you do hear some stories in the film.
How do you pick your projects?
I guess it's all just part of the flow. It's all part of the flow of the artistic practice, and combined with things being nudged forward or things being developed more extensively because of the funding I've received for that project. So, or the funding that I've applied for and not received, but the application process made me develop the project further anyway. So it's kind of a natural river flow with certain deviations that are kind of planned because of these practical things like funding, which is great. Like it's actually quite an essential part of the process. Mm-hmm. So it really makes me focus on one thing and develop it further, or it makes me develop it enough to realize that it's still not quite there yet and it needs even more development. So then I might work on it on my own time until I'm ready for the next application for it. But I normally have like 2 or 3 things happening at the same time that are at different stages, also because of the funding application like system.
And again, the time involved, I imagine it's varies by project, but how long does it take to build a film like that?
Yeah, it really does vary. How Now House, I think I worked on it on and off for like 3 or 4 years, because I started doing this research like a while back. And then I was like going to the city archive, and I did a couple artist residencies where I was able to focus on it and the research. And then I got a bit of funding, enough to do some like animation experiments. And then I got some more funding. And then actually it all came together quite quickly. And I think we shot the film and did all the post-production within like 3 or 4 months.
Oh, wow.
Which is very like specific to this film, because the film, there's some replacement animation that I was able to shoot on my own, like over, like a week in the house. So that's quite fast for animation. And then the rest was live action footage, which was quickly recorded, and then it took freaking forever to rotoscope. But that is also quite fast for animation. Whereas the film I'm working on now is this kind of different science fiction story, and I think I've been working on it for like 9 years on and off. And the animation technique is a different technique, and it's just extremely time consuming. So I think I will be animating it probably for like 2.5 years.
Wow.
When it's finally finished.
Gee.
It's a longer film. It's like 20 minutes, but still, it's just like a completely different technique that just happens to be very time consuming.
I hope you're in love with it, because that's a lot of time to spend with it.
I am in love with it most of the time.
Well, of course, yeah. You're going to have your bad days too.
Yeah. And it's some days are really, really like great and inspiring. And it's like, yes, this is why I'm doing it. And then other times you're just like, what was I thinking? Why?
Do you make your living as an animator? Do you do this full time?
I mean, like barely, I guess. I mean, I live very economically, shall we say. So that's the first thing. My bar is pretty low. And I do have side gigs that sometimes I'll do more of if I'm having a low
too.
Yeah. So like I do animation for hire for different projects. If it comes in and if it's a good fit, which is not that often, to be honest, because what I do is that, it's this kind of handmade stuff and it's quite expensive. So if it comes in and it's great, I've also been doing a bit of like directing other people doing animation. So that's good because it's like less of a time commitment for me. So yeah, I'm happy to do the commissioned work. It's great. It's a great way to kind of try different things and, take a break from this crazy long film. Or I also have like weird side jobs that have nothing to do with this, or I do teaching, but I do spend most of my time doing the arts funding applications. Yeah.
And is that why you're in Rotterdam? Is it because that's a good place to be for this kind of work, or?
Yeah, basically. I mean, depending on the type of art you do, there might be other places that are better. Each country has a different public arts system. But where I was living before, I was living in Seattle in the US, and there just wasn't that much public arts funding. There was some, and there still is, some public arts funding. And there's a lot of great people making great work there. But I just felt that it wasn't enough to actually be able to have a chance of spending most of your time on it. And so that's one of the reasons why I made this big switch. And like, the Dutch system also has its own peculiarities. It's not like super easy to start getting the funding or anything. Like you still have to kind of learn the system, and it can be complicated, and there's a lot of like hoops you have to jump through. But at least there's more funding to begin with, so you have a better shot at it. Of course, having said that, there's less funding now than there used to be here. So, if you're Dutch, you're not happy with the way things are because you remember how things were like 15, 20 years ago, where there was like a lot more money for the arts. But yeah, I mean, coming from the US, again, like your bar is pretty low. So yeah, I mean, and also, to be honest, the Netherlands is one of the places I was able to legally move to because of a special visa that they have for U.S. American freelancers.
Ask you about that, yeah.
Yeah, so it's also not really, there wasn't a lot of other options. I mean, now that I have the permanent residence card, I could in theory move to like Belgium or Germany, but it wouldn't make sense because I'd have to start all over with their funding systems. So now I'm pretty plugged into the Dutch system.
And do you speak Dutch?
My Dutch is okay. My Dutch is okay. It's not like amazing, and I don't practice enough, but yeah, it's good enough to get by in different situations.
Well, it must be hard to get practice because everyone speaks English in the Netherlands. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to be really, really hardcore.
Yeah.
And insist. Yeah. So, but it's good enough. I mean, I'm happy to speak Dutch in professional situations or with anyone who would rather speak Dutch. So it's great.
That's awesome.
Now, switching back to Yuri Norstein, my understanding is that he has been at work on a project for a long time. Do you know anything about that?
Well, it's called The Overcoat, and it's a adaptation of this Gogol book or story. I don't know much about it. I just know what everybody else knows, which is that he's been working on it for more than 30 years. Yeah, I think he just I think it's a feature length film, which is why it's so expensive. And I think he just kind of hit some funding roadblocks, and his wife, who was also his collaborative partner, who creates all the artwork for his films, I think there was like some health issues. So I don't know what's happening with it. Yeah. I mean, I think he's still working on it.
That must be very frustrating to, be working on something for so long without knowing for sure that you're ever even going to complete it.
Yeah. And especially if you're Yuri Norstein, it's like if he can't get the funding, for this passion project of his, then like there's no hope for any of us. I don't know what the state is right now of like basically public arts funding in Russia for this type of work. Yeah, but he's so beloved like all over the world. So who knows? Maybe it's also one of those things where he's not sure he wants to make it anymore, which does happen. I mean, that's kind of the danger with working on a project for that long, is that then like, halfway through, you're like, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore. But I don't know if that's the case with him. I hope not. Obviously, I would love to see this film, but it is a danger after 30 years.
The danger of falling out of love with your work, is higher.
Yeah, indeed. So I hope that doesn't happen with this film I'm working on.
So as we come to the closing of our chat, you're working on this film. Do you have any other great passion projects that you're really keen on pursuing?
I mean, there's definitely a couple projects that are currently on the back burner that I would love to get back to. I'm also starting a new project with a collaborator based on a poem that we will hopefully, it's a smaller scale project. So hopefully that'll happen like within the next 6 months. And then there's a feature film that I've been developing for years that is definitely on the back burner for now. And another project related to this like ancestor of mine who died in a hospital in Genoa in 1871, and something about that that I still clearly need to develop. But it's something I would love to have time to get back to at some point.
And where can people see your work now?
All of my earlier work from like 2022 and before is on my website or on my YouTube or Vimeo. So you can just Google my name and then find it. The 1976 film will be online next summer. So you just have to wait a little bit longer for that one. And then How Now House is still going around festivals. So hopefully it's coming to a film festival or animation festival near you, or video art festival. That's also been happening, which is good.
And we can link to all that stuff from our notes page.
We can, and we will.
Yeah.
Yes. Mark,
Great.
any final thoughts, questions?
Just wonderful. I managed not to raise Prague, but now I'm going to do it. I'm going to out myself because I actually
on about Prague
because I lived in Prague for a year, and
Nice.
so I was watching the first few minutes of this movie. I'm like, I think I've seen this before, because there was all kinds of Soviet animation still on the airwaves when I was there in 1993.
Oh, I bet. I bet.
Yeah. And it was culturally quite a shock.
Oh, yeah?
Well, it was, because I had, it was 1993. I'd never seen anything like some of this stuff, and it is so evocative and strange if you've never experienced it before. So thank you for reminding me of this.
I guess that's true. Yeah. And I mean, the Czech Republic has, of course, like Jan Zvankmajer and Karel Zeman and like all these amazing people.
And it's such an amazing film community too. Like it's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Super inspiring. Like this idea of like, there's no rules you have to follow as long as you are justifying them for yourself in your own mind, then you can do whatever you want. Like that kind of freedom comes through, I think, in this work, which I appreciate very much.
People have to check out your work then. Because they'll get the same feeling.
Yes, if you are my audience, if you're listening and you're like, yes, I agree, then you are my audience.
Yeah.
Please check out my work. Yes.
Tess Martin, thank you very much for being on our podcast, Recreative.
Thank you for having me.
You've been listening to Recreative, a podcast about creativity and the works that inspire it. Recreative is produced by Mark Rayner and Joe Mahoney for Donovan Street Press Inc. in association with Monkey Joy Press. Technical production and music by Joe Mahoney, web design by Mark Rayner. You can support this podcast by checking out our guests' work, listening to their music, purchasing their books, watching their shows, and so on. You can find out more about each guest and all of our past episodes by visiting recreative.ca. That's re-creative.ca. You can contact us by emailing Joe Mahoney at donovanstreetpress.com. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for listening.